to Gotta Run. This is Will Sanchez. This is a very special episode of Gotta Run with Will. It is my 50th recording. So there are a few people I really want to thank. First, Manhattan Neighborhood Network for making these facilities available to us. And to my wonderful crew in the control room, especially Gloria Messer, who has been with me since show number 1. Thank you guys, I love you very much. Before I begin to introduce the guest, I want to read a passage from a book. For the first time since the brutal assault in 1989, a crime that stunned New Yorkers, the nation and the world, the Central Park Jogger reveals her identity and tells the story you haven't heard. The journey of a young woman who turned horrifying violence and sudden death into extraordinary healing and triumphant life. Ladies and gentlemen, my special guest tonight is Trisha Meili. She is the Central Park Jogger. Tonight, we're going to be concentrating on a story of hope and possibility.
Thank you, Will, and it's so great to be here on the 50th episode.
Trisha, let's get started, as I do with all my shows. Tell us a little bit about your background. Where were you born? A little bit about your family, something about your schooling.
I was born in Paramus, New Jersey, before all the malls. Lived in Paramus till I was about 12 years old, and then my dad worked for Westinghouse, and we were transferred out to Pittsburgh, and so I went through high school there. And I've been in then the Northeast, you know, all my life. I consider myself a New Englander.
Okay. As a youngster, were you into athletics?
I was pretty serious about ballet on the one side, but on the other, I was very much a tomboy. I had 2 older brothers, and I wanted to participate in everything that they were doing. Mm-hmm. So I played, you know, touch football, even tackle football with them, you know, up to a period of time, and baseball, depending on whatever the season was. We played whatever sport was, you know, what the professionals were playing.
Oh, okay.
So I would oftentimes, you know, I'd be out on the football field and then run back home, change into my leotard and tights, and take my ballet slippers and go off to ballet lessons.
What age was that?
From about, you know, 7 to 10 or so.
You know, very flexible in those days.
Yes.
Well, that's excellent. In college, what was your major in?
I was an economics major at Wellesley College, which is the halfway point of the Boston Marathon.
Done Boston once, and they're the best, loudest cheerleaders on the course.
In part, it's 2 reasons. It's a state holiday, Patriots Day. So there's a lot of people watching, and there are a ton of schools in Boston. So you get a lot of you know, 20-year-olds out cheering people on and having a grand time.
They do a wonderful job.
Yeah.
Great. Well, were you running in those days?
I did. I had started running just before I went to college. Nothing serious at all. One of my older brothers, you know, took me down to the track, to the high school track, and he said, "Oh, I'm gonna, you know, go running. Do you want to come?" So I thought, all right, let me try. And so I remember going, I think, a quarter of a mile around, you know, the track, and I really enjoyed it. And then when I got to school, it was a wonderful release for me, and I loved to be outside. And then seeing the enthusiasm and excitement around the Boston Marathon, and you know, when I saw that my freshman year, April of my freshman year, I thought to myself, you know, maybe I can do this. And the following year, I did it, you know, as an unqualified runner.
Oh, you mean you were a bandit?
Yes, yes. A Boston bandit.
Hopefully the statute of limitations has passed on that, and they don't come after you.
There weren't quite as many people running back in the 80s. It was just so much fun and a lot of work. It was a lot of hard work.
You prepared for it, of course.
I did. I did a fair amount of training.
You weren't able to get in legitimately.
It was never fast enough.
So I
didn't qualify. I never qualified for the Boston Marathon, but I ran with great enthusiasm and spirit. I tell you, when you come and you know through that halfway point through Wellesley College, and because I was a student there and had a Wellesley T-shirt, people went crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
one of their sisters.
That's right.
Excellent.
It was
Well, I love
fun.
their signs. After graduate school, what happened?
After college, I went and worked in Boston for a year or two, and then I went to graduate school at Yale in their business school.
Okay.
And then I worked on Wall Street, that awful place or a place that everybody thinks is very awful now. But I had a great experience there, and about 2.5 years after I started at Salomon Brothers, which is no more.
Right.
Salomon Brothers was purchased by another firm back in 1998. I had become compulsive about my running and about exercise.
An unhealthy compulsion?
Yes, I think it was unhealthy because, no matter what else happened, I, needed to run or exercise in some way.
Well, by the way, I'm rereading your book,
Ah.
which is I Am the Central Park Jogger. And I think it mentions in there you were injured, your shoulder was broken, and something happened because of that increased compulsiveness.
Now you're getting into the deeper stuff. Way back when I was about 12 or 13, I broke my shoulder, and from that I had to wear a sling for a while, and I couldn't dance. I was very serious about dancing. Mm-hmm. And in part with dance, there's such an emphasis on your body and being thin, and thinking about, what am I going to do, because I can't I can't exercise, and so what did I do? It developed into an eating disorder. I thought, well, I just won't eat. A few years later was starting to be compulsive about the running, because that was a way just to keep moving and keep
Mm-hmm.
losing weight, although it doesn't make any rational sense, because I've always been a pretty slender person and fit. What happened one night after work, I had gotten home from work a bit after 8 o'clock at night, and I had to go running, and I would go in Central Park, and sometimes I would go with other people, but a lot of times I just went on my own, and I went on my own, and that night was a horrible night in Central Park. There were almost 40 teenagers who were roaming the park and beating people up, and I ended up being attacked and beaten, bound, gagged, and raped. And from the beating, I suffered a traumatic brain injury. And I have no memory of it because of the brain injury. I'd say almost 100% of people who have a severe brain injury have no memory of the actual event, and depending on where they're hit and how they're hit, the extent of the amnesia before it, varies, and then also afterwards. So I have no memory for, about 5 o'clock from that evening till about 6 weeks later.
Wow. It was almost a blessing, because that was described as the crime of the century by Mayor Ed Koch at the time. It was so horrific. The whole country was pulling for you, the whole world.
Yeah, I tell you, from all that, I think I never ever felt alone, even though at the time I didn't consciously know that there were all these people, the world out there, thinking about me and praying for me and saying good intentions, and really they were part of my recovery, but somehow I believe I knew, and I think that helped me to move forward.
13 years later, you wrote the book.
I wrote the book.
And I said, I'm rereading it again, and it just brings tears to my eyes, reading this thing. Some of the people you met along the way were so kind and wonderful.
It's just amazing, and that's part of why the subtitle is called The Story of Hope and Possibility, because to me that really is the soul of the book. Yes, the crime was horrible, and it was a crime that nearly killed me, but that healing process is something that I'm so grateful for, and showed me just what the body and the mind can do, and that all of us, whatever our challenges are, can do so much more than we ever thought possible, especially with the kind of love and support that provides the hope that lets possibility emerge.
You were in a wheelchair for a while.
I was.
In your book, or maybe one of your speeches, I love the phrase, you graduated from the wheelchair to a wobbly walk.
A wobbly walk.
And then from there to a quarter mile.
And not too long after, I was, you know, quote unquote, walking on my own without the wheelchair. The head of the physical therapy department up at Gaylord Hospital, which is a rehab hospital in Connecticut, kind of casually asked me if I wanted to join a group of people who met on Saturday mornings to run. And at first I was a little hesitant, you know, can I do this? I don't know, you know, and because I was thinking a little bit about what I used to do and can I do it? I wasn't sure, but I thought, you know what, I trust him. And so one Saturday morning, I joined them, and it turns out it was a chapter of the Achilles Track Club. And Achilles, now known as Achilles International, is an international organization that encourages people with all kinds of challenges and disabilities to participate in mainstream athletics, and primarily running. And that first day, that Saturday morning, when we started out, and it was this quarter-mile loop. It wasn't even a track. It just went right through the hospital parking lot. You know, I was wobbly, but it felt so good. I felt like I could conquer the world, and it really filled me with such hope. And I got a sense of what was possible, and I felt really proud of what I could do, even if it was, you know, barely a quarter of a mile, and I was, you know, kind of wobbly and such. That didn't matter. I just felt good about what I could do, and so, you know, with that same spirit, Achilles and I, because I then became, you know, affiliated with them when I moved back to New York City, we started the Hope and Possibility Race, kind of named after the book. What we've started really is this tradition now, because the 10th Hope and Possibility Race will be happening very soon. We're
taping on Friday, and it'll be on Sunday. So by the time this airs, it'll be over. But we know it's already sold out.
Yeah.
So people that want to go in may have to do a Trisha Meili. They may have to go to the back of the line and run it.
I'm not going to say anything. But yet over 5,000 people have registered, and that's the limit. And so we started this tradition of offering a sense of hope and possibility through the race, that you know, with exercise, both able-bodied and those with whatever challenges it is can in a way work together and set goals and focus on those goals and then achieve them. And that's what Achilles is all about.
Setting goals. That is important.
The whole sense of the setting goals with running and you know, or I say running, walking or rolling too, if you're in a wheelchair. I believe that, you know, setting a physical goal is so powerful because you can see yourself achieve it, and that helps build the self-confidence, build your self-confidence and your self-esteem. And when that starts to happen, you know, you feel like you've achieved something, and with that achievement, then you're inclined to say, well, maybe I can do a little more, maybe go a little further, maybe go a little faster. And the cycle, you know, just continues. And I believe what I've seen in myself and in others, you know, with Achilles, is that confidence gained in the physical realm can be transferred to other aspects of your life, to achievements in other aspects of your life. Maybe at school, or at work, or in a relationship. and maybe you'll conquer an assignment at school, or you'll do something that you might not have done at work, or who knows, maybe you'll ask somebody out that you wouldn't have or something.
Interesting. It empowers you.
Yes, exactly.
I want to share the story. My prior interview with Ann Malum, who is the founder of Back on My Feet. And she's using the gift of running to help people that are experiencing homelessness to feel empowered the way you described, almost word to word.
Oh, wow.
Your words are universal.
And we didn't rehearse it either. To me, it's just confirmation that yes, this seeing something in the physical realm really does help change the attitude about yourself. And I've seen, in my own life, that when I feel good about myself, when I feel proud of what I can do, not, worrying about, what I could have done, but looking at what I can do, then I feel like I can do anything, and anything becomes possible.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the history of the Hope and Possibility. The 10-year anniversary is coming up. I think last year it attracts international attention. Is it Prince Harry from England?
Prince Harry in 2010.
2010. Time flies.
Yes, it does. It does.
And the media just loved it because he was there, and he was so kind.
Oh, he had heard about Achilles, and that we had a chapter at Walter Reed Medical Center, and we've been working since 2004 with recently injured veterans and soldiers from Iraq and Afghanistan. And we have this chapter at Walter Reed, and and here are these men and women, a lot of whom have lost limbs, and oftentimes, unfortunately, it's more than one limb. And and the group that goes down to Walter Reed, and Dick Traum, the founder, he'll say, "Would you like to run in a marathon?" And they're like, "What, are you crazy?" And he gets them in a hand crank wheelchair, and they're able to adapt the chair for the person depending on what their limbs can do, and it gives them it's that word empowerment, that sense of empowerment again. Look at what I can do. I can be in this race with everybody else. And the great thing about Achilles is it combines, or it invites people who are able-bodied to join those who have a challenge, and it's just wonderful how everyone is there together. The Achilles, what I love about the organization is it helps people just change their lives. There are so many stories. As many Achilles athletes, there's a wonderful story about how Achilles helped give them the support that they needed to take charge of their life again.
It is. I'll never forget the first time I ran Hope and Possibility, 2003. It was just amazing to see the people with artificial limbs out there, and some of them much faster than I. But still, it felt great that this mass of humanity with different obvious disabilities running together as a team.
Many there who have some kind of disability or challenge that you don't know. It's not as obvious as a missing limb, so we just accept everyone, because I'll tell you what I've learned over the years in my speaking, because I do motivational speaking, is that every one of us, faces some kind of a challenge.
At least at some point in our lives.
Yeah.
You're a full-time motivational speaker?
I am. So
how did you transition to that?
Well, I stayed at Solomon for about, how many more, till 1998. And then I just kept thinking about maybe it's time to do something else. I wasn't quite sure of what it would be, but I ended up running a nonprofit in New York City. It's called the Bridge Fund of New York, Inc., that helped gave financial aid to people who were threatened with homelessness. And it was a wonderful organization, a great opportunity. And part of what it showed me was, I need to get back to what really I guess, sets me on fire, and that's talking about health and healing, you know, for those who have a brain injury or who've been sexually assaulted, and that led to the writing of my book, really.
Right.
And now I do the motivational speaking, not just to groups who've been sexually assaulted or who have brain injuries. It's amazing how the story, and I get a sense of it from you a bit, just really seems to resonate with so many people. Either they know someone who's been through some kind of a trauma, or they have been, and I just continue to get the message, you've got to keep doing what you're doing.
That's great. Well, the book was written 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So what were some of the biggest highlights in the last 10 years that you can share with us?
Wow, shoot.
Number one or two?
I tell you, a real big one was throwing out the first pitch at a Giants game. That was in 2004. It was the San Francisco Giants. So that was quite a feat.
Did the ball land on the catcher's mitt?
It did, and I stood on the pitcher's mound. I practiced for a while with my husband in our backyard. You know, he plotted out 60 feet, because that's the distance from the pitcher's mound to home plate.
Right.
And I just practiced and practiced so that I wouldn't embarrass myself and throw it into the dirt. So I made it. So
what made it such a special highlight?
Standing in the middle of a professional baseball field on the pitcher's mound, and it was baseball, Strikeout Violence Day.
Okay.
And surrounding me were other sexual assault survivors and their families on the field, and to feel that support. And you know, part of it is raising awareness that this kind of stuff happens. It it happens at all times of day, to all ages and ethnic groups, and you know, but we need to support each other.
Absolutely. And I guess hearing that announcer, you know, mention your name and seeing yourself on the Jumbotron,
that's right.
It must be very exciting.
It was to make the pitch to go over.
That's great. Are you still running?
I am. I did do a marathon with Achilles in 1995. I know it seems like it was ages ago, but I actually was a guide in 1994 with Dick Traum. He was on his crutches, and we walked the marathon, and I thought to myself, you know,
wow,
maybe I can do this. And the following year I ran it. And I crossed that finish line in 4.5 hours. So
my goodness, that's a great time.
It's a pretty good time.
Good.
Now, I haven't run a marathon since. I continue to run in a very healthy way, probably a couple times a week, maybe 3 or 4 miles at a time.
Okay, so your compulsiveness is gone.
Yes, it is.
Somehow that during your rehab, you had other things to worry about.
I had other things to worry about. I think, you know, I don't recommend this is a way to get over an eating disorder, to, you know, get a brain injury and such, but I think I realized that I had put my body through so much by, you know, not feeding it properly, and then, you know, running it like a mad woman. So I needed to, you know, to eat well to heal as part of the healing process, and so that was, to me, actually probably one of the biggest benefits of the healing process.
I don't usually ask this question of my guests, but for some reason, did your faith help you in this process at all?
I tell you what, I felt in a way that the God from all those people who reached out to me in whatever way they did, I felt that, and the power of that, and that really helped me to feel as if I weren't alone, and helped to give me the strength to continue to move forward, because it's a struggle.
That's a great answer. The reason it came to me while I was reading your story, it was telling about all the special oils and prayers. It was regardless of religion, from all over the world. And you had this wonderful nurse who said, sure, this oil says she put it on you, took care of it. She tried all the ointments, all the prayers. Right. And so prayer did play a big part in your role. It wasn't one particular prayer. It was.
I believe it was everything, And there's a chapter in the book called Thank You for Your Prayers that just tells stories of the official prayers that were said, but other ways that people reached out that they didn't have to. And I also realize how fortunate I am. Oftentimes people don't receive that kind of support. So one of the things that I do when I'm out speaking is to encourage people to reach out in whatever way feels appropriate to them to other people who may need it, because it does make a difference in helping people heal.
Yes, it does. It's interesting because I interviewed Ann just before you, and she talks about the power of touch. What they do when they get together for a run, they surround each other and they hug. And I remember, because I'm reading your story, that touch was so important in your rehabilitation.
Yes, I believe it was, and it was that nurse, Pat Babb, she told me, I don't remember this, but she would hold me in her arms when I became agitated. And that's a common reaction for people with brain injuries. They get agitated. So she would hold me and to try and calm me down. And I believe that touch is a powerful factor in the healing process. And my husband and I touch a lot.
Touch and hugs.
That's right.
Well, my nutritionist says you can't have too much of hugs and kisses.
That's right. That's right.
And touching. Oh, excellent. So let's close by asking, what are some of your future challenges?
I'll say, in a way, athletically, I'm going to run the 5 miles of the Hope and Possibility race, which is, I don't normally run 5 miles, and so it's a little bit of a challenge, and that Central Park is hilly. So I'm looking forward to that. But I continue to, to speak to all different kinds of groups, and it's part of my healing, but it's also a challenge, and I love to do it. I love to spread that message of hope and possibility, to let people know that yes, we can.
You do it so well.
Thank you.
And people obviously can Google you and find you very easily nowadays.
Yes, and I'll tell you, my website is www.centralparkjogger.com.
Thank you so much for coming in and sharing these great stories.
Thank you so much.
Continued success in all your endeavors.
Thank you, Will.
And much happiness.